I first heard of Edward Mudge in mid-2020 when a friend mentioned his great-grandfather had been a photographer. Working in the early to mid-20th century, he had photographed everything that happened in his community, from baby photos to fetes, fires, scenic views, and sold portraits and postcards widely. During lockdown in the UK, I had looked at rephotography in relation to Mudge. I researched the archive held at the New Forest Heritage Centre and visited the scenes from my home using Google Street View. While thinking and working in this way, I looked at the work of Doug Rickard and Jackie Kenny, amongst others, and these approaches were more like street photography or travel photography using Street View. I find the ideas interesting and not without merit, but I felt any work about Mudge needed a more personal connection, COVID allowing.
Hi, I'm Kath Walke. I'm the Centre Manager here at the New Forest Heritage Centre in Lyndhurst. I first joined the organisation back in January 2016 to manage a project called Academy, which created a website called New Forest Knowledge, and we set about digitising and cataloguing the collections here in the Heritage Centre, primarily in the Christopher Tower Reference Library. And it was within the first few days of being here that I realised we had this really, really magnificent collection of postcards with photographs by Edward Mudge. And it was really one of the highlights of the collection, and I thought we needed to do something with this to make it more widely known and share these with people, because they're it's such an exceptional archive of really, really high quality images, and they're such a rare snapshot of time in the interwar period of the area between around sort of the Bewley River over to Southampton Water, really the Waterside area. The whole collection of Ashlett photos is one of the real strong points of this collection, obviously because it was a place he, saw on a daily basis. So he saw all the changes and all the events, and he captures so many different dimensions of it.
Well, I think this one, which is a picture of the in the village of Bewley, I think is one that I find is very interesting. It features a horse and cart. It features the buildings as they were when he photographed them, and the road when he photographed them, and they're now very much modernised with pavements, and the houses are probably now in a significantly better state of repair than they were then. So it's interesting because it's a charming photograph, but it's also interesting because you can make a comparison to the way it is now and what's happened.
I wanted to find out more about dry plates, and the man who makes them commercially available in the world is Jason Lane, J Lane Dry Plates. So I asked him, what kind of chemicals are involved and what effect does it have on the environment?
The basic chemicals are just water, gelatin, the silver nitrate, potassium bromide, potassium iodide. And that's pretty much it. But yes, to your point, I try to hold myself to a higher standard because I did grow up in a rural area. I love the woods and the outdoors and stuff, and I want my kids to enjoy it just like I have.
And I wondered what Jason could tell me about the process of developing the plates.
Well, it touches on how they used to do this back in the late 19th century. You're basically doing it exactly the way they did it.
Right.
Where you drop it in a tray typically in their kitchen at night after 11 p.m., watching it develop. They used to develop by inspection. There was some recommended times that like Kodak would put out or Ilford would put out, but most folks would watch these plates develop out.
Armed with the knowledge that I needed to produce the negatives, I set forth and I wanted to speak to Mudge's granddaughter, Sandra Barnett, about what happened to his plates.
I don't actually know, but someone that I got to know did a lot of reprints for me and also gave me some original pictures. And he said that it was all buried in the garden, all left there, buried in the garden.
And while burying somebody's work in the ground may not be the key to success in terms of longevity of the negatives, Mudge's work does survive him in the form of the postcards that he made, and also some diaries that he kept about his photography and more specifically his fowling.
He drew the birds, all the birds that he actually shot. He drew them. Beautiful. Yeah, he had a lovely writing hand as well.
I asked Sandra where she might go to make a photograph which was reminiscent of her grandfather's.
It'd have to be the creek, Ashlett Creek. I mean, really, it's hardly changed. When you look at the old photographs, it's hardly changed down there, really.
Try and visualise, where would you be and what would you be looking towards? How would you show Ashlett Creek?
I think I would go to the yachting place and look back. So you've got the mill on your right, the house,
the green
and the pub. Cool, this is lovely. I didn't expect it to be that warm. That wind's dropped, hasn't it? I wish I'd known him, you know, before he, you know, became old, before he gave up the business.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have known him then, you know, when he lived in the village and worked here and took all the photographs.
Right, do you want to do the honours?
Oh, yeah.
So what you need to do is, it's all ready.
Yeah.
So don't do it just yet, but you're just going to press that plunger down.
Right.
Right, let me just... Right, so just whenever you feel the moment is right,
Right.
you just press that on the top. Done.
Wow.
So there we go. I've been reminded of the long-held admiration I have for many photographers who use large format for its quality and precision. Avedon, Penn, Ansel Adams. I prefer the 5x4 aspect ratio to that of 35mm film. I think it suggests, subconsciously probably, a classic look without being a retro look. The larger image area allows for a more detailed image, 5x4 negative being 13 times larger than its 35mm equivalent. I chose to have these postcards made on non-gloss silk finish at 350 grams per square metre. The white isn't a particularly bright white and the blacks aren't too rich, and while I would have liked some texture to the paper, this choice gave the image quality that I was looking for. I also chose to make the postcards the same size they would have been as contact prints with just a small border. I've learnt a lot so far with this work, not least of which has been the power of personal connection in photography. It was important for me to post these images to the people who worked with me on this project as a way of thanking them and connecting them even more with the work of Edward Mudge. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with the family and the New Forest Heritage Centre on the legacy of Edward Mudge, the Waterside's photographer.